Hi folks, hope you're well out there still. Today's video I'm going to be doing about Obsidian, which is a Markdown text editor. I'll be going through a little bit about what is Markdown, what are the advantages of it, some examples of the formatting, why I'd use it, that sort of thing, and also why I chose Obsidian, because I was using QOwnNotes before. And then I want to talk a little bit about synchronizing, specifically using NextCloud, and that is from Obsidian with the desktop, as well as especially iOS, iPhone mobile apps, which have got a couple of idiosyncrasies with regards to showing of, the previewing of images, especially media subdirectories, that sort of thing, when they're stored on NextCloud. And then we'll just sort of end off more with touring the interface a bit, looking at the actual product, and I'll go through some of the menu options as well. And just to say sort of upfront, the thing that was exciting to me about Obsidian itself was something like 547 different community plugins, which really do expand and give a lot of functionality that you just absolutely don't find in other Markdown editors. So I just wanted to say also that I am using Obsidian's own slideshow plugin. When I close it, I'll just show you what it looks like. But what you're seeing at the moment is one of the slides. So yes, it's not a very fancy slideshow. It is, fairly basic maybe. But just to show you that you can actually run the slideshow actually inside or from Obsidian itself using just a Markdown text file. So it just shows you there how to activate it. But that's the first slide. So what is Markdown? Basically, it's a lightweight markup language that adds formatting elements to a plain text document. The important part here is it's plain text. There's no binary blobs and other things inside the text document, which means as well, if there's any corruption or issues or problems, you haven't lost your entire document. You can open it with anything as well to edit and see what's going on in the document. A little bit like HTML, but HTML has got a whole lot of tags and funny other syntaxes. You'll see Markdown is very simple. It was created by John Gruber in 2004, so it's been around for quite a long time, and it is one of the world's most popular markup languages. The big thing to note though is there's no WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get. But there is a sort of a preview option. So in other words, while you're typing, you're basically just typing in plain text and you're inserting in the rawest manner. You'll just be inserting certain characters really that help format the text. But what you're not seeing really is it shifting and aligning and bolding and doing all those things on the screen as you're busy typing. There is sometimes some of the apps offer a preview pane off to the right, so that if you're typing on the left in the text, you can see the changes on the right as you're typing, but it's not live in one pane as you're typing. If I can just say it'll make a bit more sense when I show it a bit later. Some apps, however, do have menu buttons and hotkeys that you can use. So one way is, for example, bold is got asterisk, asterisk, word, asterisk, asterisk. That's how you'd bold it. But in many cases, you could highlight a word, and if the app is supporting it, you just click on the little bold button like you'd see in LibreOffice or in Microsoft Word, for example. And those icons will be on a sort of a little menu bar above or below. And the same goes for mobile apps as well as desktop apps. Many have also got hotkeys, just like Obsidian. In many cases, you can set exactly how you want the hotkeys set up, but generally there'll be something like, say, by default, something like highlight the text, press Control and B for bold, press Control and I for italics. So it'll be as simple as that to actually operate. The advantages of Markdown is, first of all, maximum portability across all operating systems as well as applications. So what I mean by that is, unlike, say, DocX, which is owned by Microsoft and has got some form of support across LibreOffice and various other packages, it's not uniformly the same across everything. And so you are dependent often upon the application or a specific company to manage that. Now, in the case of Markdown, it's an open standard. It's very broadly and widely supported. So what you're going to find is it works on Mac OS, Windows, Linux, iOS, Android, and so on. And across the various applications, they all support native Markdown. There's a couple of little extra options they might offer, and you'll find then that those might not work or render properly in the other application. But, you know, again, typically you're going to maybe use something on your phone, something on your desktop, and maybe something on another operating system. And 99% of it is already all compatible across everything. So that's the first thing. The other, as I did touch on just now, it is plain text files. There's no proprietary format. Nobody owns it. Nobody can switch it off or discontinue it or shut it down. And there's no binary corruption. So if anything happens to maybe get damaged, or you know, there's something gets corrupted maybe inside the file, you've still got the rest of the entire text file, and you can easily just open it and fix it and clean it up if you need to. So it really survives things like, also the third point, there's no lock-in and no to dead apps. If an app, any one of these Markdown editor apps actually gets discontinued for whatever reason, or somebody loses interest in continuing to support that particular open source application, no problem. Application 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, 110 will work just as well for you on all your existing files. So, you know, the great thing as well is whatever you create on this, the chances are it should be readable in 50 years or 80 years time plus, you know, when Microsoft Office is, for example, long gone. Then the other thing is, because the standard is very uniform across all the Markdown files or applications, you can learn once and just use it everywhere. So if you've mastered asterisk, asterisk, word, asterisk, asterisk for bold, it's going to work exactly the same across everything else. So might be a little bit of a learning curve to learn some of the syntax possibly, but you know, again, you're probably only going to use 5 or 10% of that syntax in most cases, and once you've known it, like I said, you can use it everywhere. Examples of Markdown, and I will open a Markdown cheat sheet just now, just to show you in more detail actually what it looks like, but I was just mentioning there that if you put the 2 asterisks around a word, a sentence, a paragraph, it's going to bold it, and that's what it'll look like. An unordered list, you know, a bullet list, for example, you're just going to use dashes, and it will actually include a dash every time you hit enter to start a new line. And then links typically will look something like this. In the square brackets, there'll be a description, optional. You don't have, well, for a link, you probably will have to have a description, but you put a description in, which is what will appear in the text, and in braces, I think it's called braces or normal brackets, you'll put the link. And that's basically all you have to do, and that's how you can display a link. You can actually just type a link in and it'll also work, but if you want to give it an optional, for example, alternative description, then you'll put it in like that. Images are embedded in a similar manner. The important thing is you'll start with an exclamation mark, which you see here. The square brackets is where you'll have, if optionally, if you want to, have a description for the image, you'll put it in there. And then what you must include in the round or brackets or braces here is either a link to the actual image if you want to link to something on the internet, or you can use a relative or an absolute path to put the file name in here to the image. Just bear in mind, if you want your Markdown file to be portable across different operating systems and files and that sort of thing, you're either going to use an internet link or you're going to use maybe a relative link. But an absolute link is probably only going to work on your own and your one machine that you're working on, because if you now move to iOS or if you move to another operating system, your absolute path obviously is going to differ. A relative path might not differ. In other words, it'll be your note in the current directory and you've got a subdirectory called, say, media. Then as long as there's also another subdirectory called media, no matter where on that hard drive, it'll work fine and should display everything. So yeah, it's just examples to give you an idea of what the syntax or the format of that syntax looks like. So why Obsidian? As I said, I was using QOwnNotes, and QOwnNotes is open source. It's configurable as well, and it's got about 78 different scripts that will provide additional functionality that you can make use of, and it's been around for quite a long time. And I can just show you briefly. This is actually what QOwnNotes actually looks like. So your note that you type in is here on the left. On the right will be the preview. So as you're typing, you'll be able to see, well, not showing, I haven't got anything actually in here that's really showing it off, so that's probably why. You can quickly jump on your tags to filter on notes. You can change here between your notes, and here is a navigation pane showing the main headings, and if you click on those, it will take you straight to them. So that really is QO. And the other thing I was going to say is why I'd like QOwnNotes originally was because, I could just take some text like this and I could click there on bold and it does it for you on the fly. Oops, now I've gone and not undone that again. But from that perspective, I was possibly a little bit too lazy, but it was working very nicely for me. And when I went to go look at Obsidian, I didn't find the menu bar with the bold at the top and all the rest of it, and I didn't see all the additional plugins or the knowledge base graph really working well, and that is why I sort of looked at it and I thought, well, not really for me, I'll just go back to QOwnNotes. So yeah, I've discovered a little bit more about Obsidian. I had another look at it, and very, very interesting. I'm actually quite interested, and I'll probably be using it now in future. It is proprietary, but as I pointed out before, remember that if it goes out of support or anything happens, I can continue just as easily on my QOwnNotes or any other Markdown editor. So there is no lock-in to it. So it's not a major issue with it maybe being proprietary. It is free to use. It is also highly configurable. What I do like though is it's got a slightly more intuitive user interface. It's difficult to explain, but it's just as customizable, a little bit easier, and you've got drag and drop for the panes and various other things. So I do like the interface a little bit more. And apart from the 547 incredibly powerful plugins, and I'll go through some of those, is the knowledge base graph. So how it sort of pictures itself is it's not just a Markdown text editor, it is also a knowledge base app as well, and that's probably maybe the exciting part about it. So playing nicely with NextCloud, the issue here is that if you are using Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, you probably are right with most Markdown editors. For those of you that are using NextCloud, there are one or two little finicky things that Obsidian does play nicely with, and I will also cover the two mobile apps that I do find working quite well with it, mainly because also iOS has got a couple of idiosyncrasies. So the key things just to remember though, if you're working with NextCloud and probably any of the online syncs like Dropbox and Google Drive as well, you first of all, obviously on Obsidian, you want to set syncing, and you want to sync the vault to your NextCloud notes folder. So in the case on Linux, what I'm really doing is when I've created the vault, I've pointed its location of the vault to where my NextCloud folder is on the hard drive, and specifically the notes folder. So it's defaulting, if I open Obsidian up, it's seeing those notes. So I'm not using it to sync directly to my NextCloud. It's literally working to that synced folder on my hard drive. And that is working perfectly well to do all the syncing to NextCloud. The second tip here, specifically with NextCloud, is make sure that your Obsidian is actually writing and saving or naming your files to a .md, a file name extension. Because yes, it can also work with text or .text extension files, no problem. But the reason why is because NextCloud will specifically recognize it as a Markdown file, and then it'll actually provide a little bit of additional functionality, and I can just show you that quickly as well actually. So this is my browser, and you can see here I'm actually in my NextCloud server at the moment using the browser view, and I'm just in my files in my notes directory, and there's all my notes. You'll see they have got the .md extension on the end. So if I was to open, say, this Markdown cheat sheet now, you'll see here at the top it's built into NextCloud already. It's got things like the bolds, the italics, that sort of thing. So you can go down and you could highlight anything, and you can see there you could add a link or a file, or you could just click bold or create a list or a check to-do list or whatever you want to do. So just to show you there, it does work inside of NextCloud as well. just continuing then, also ensure the Markdown Editor app is installed in NextCloud. It's one of the apps that you can install there. That'll just give you that, make sure you've got that functionality to edit the Markdown files properly. And then the other thing is, for images, I have mentioned already about the relative paths, but within Obsidian, there is a setting where you also set your files and links, and you can see you set it to relative paths, not absolute. And then also you turn off there's a wiki links generation. You turn that off. That's a sort of a custom thing that gives you a couple of enhancements that Obsidian provides. But by turning it off, you'll make sure you've got fully Markdown compatible links generated or created within Obsidian when you're making use of it. So those were two things in Obsidian you must just set. And then also on image paths, I've tested quite a bit for relative paths. In the case of where you've got a media subfolder under your notes folder inside NextCloud or Google Drive or iCloud or whatever the case is, Obsidian is very resilient. It will use any three of these relative path addressing. So either, well, this is a Linux thing, but either current folder, you use the dot and the slash, and then media as the subfolder and file.png as the file name, or you can, without specifying anything in front of it, just media / and the file name, and it'll interpret that as the subfolder. Or you can even use, and this is a bit of an odd one actually, because often this means off the root, not the current directory like this one over here is. You can even use /media /file.png. So obviously Obsidian is interpreting that because it's seeing the notes folder as the root folder. The problem with this last one is if you use this in your actual Markdown files, it does tend to break on your mobile app and some of the other things. So I would actually recommend don't use this. Even though Obsidian can use this, don't use it in your linking of any attachments or photos or anything that are stored in the relative subfolder. Use either this one or use the media /. Then specifically for iOS mobile apps, you probably don't have such an issue in Android, but iOS has got an idiosyncrasy that it's got some way of sandboxing, especially one application from another. So if you're trying to use Obsidian I showed over here, Obsidian has got a very nice mobile app with all functionality and all sorts of plugins and things that work inside it. The problem is it's one application. Now, if you, especially the free app, it only syncs to iCloud and to Obsidian's paid Cloud Sync. So the problem is if you want to sync to Google Drive or to WebDAV or NextCloud or anything, you've got to have the paid version. And without that, you can't actually, unfortunately, now point it properly to the NextCloud folder on iOS. iOS, like I said, has got some issues with what it's doing. So I found that crippled Obsidian app. When I did try and manage to sync it with WebDAV, it was only downloading 10 or 20 or 30 notes and I wasn't getting to sync. So this didn't work for me on iOS really. What I did find worked very well, apart from there is no image preview, is free MDNotes. Works beautifully. It works on your NextCloud folder that's already been synced to your iOS phone, whether your iPad or your iPhone. So let's just have a quick look. I'll show you quickly what MDNotes actually looks like. So this will be showing the MDNotes app. You can see bottom right of my screen there. You've got a couple of locations you can look at, but as I said, it's either iCloud Drive or Google Drive by default in the free version, unless you pay for the subscription or you pay for the paid version. But you can go to NextCloud there, which you can see. This is now opening up NextCloud locally on my iPhone device. It's not connecting directly to NextCloud in the cloud. And you'll see there are my notes. And if you look at top right, there's the Markdown cheat sheet that I'll be using. It's got a demo really of all the different types of Markdown you can run. So this will be the edit view that you can see over here. And if you push the icon at the top, second from the right there, that is the preview mode. This just gives you an idea of what MDNotes can do. So you'll see there are headings. Mostly everything is displaying fine. What I really want to show you though specifically here is what it doesn't do is links. It's just showing you the actual links, but if you look at what's embedded, audio clip embedded from an attachment, you click to play, I think it's not really playing. So it's got definitely some problems with being able to find what's linked. For example, this Evernote, where it says Evernote 200, that is an image that was embedded and it's not picking up those attachments. Apart from that though, everything else, tables, everything else, there's a table displayed, everything else is basically working okay on MDNotes. So let's just go back. Okay, so that was MDNotes, and we can also just have a quick look at OneWriter. It's another app. This costs a once or $5 fee, so I don't think that's too excessive to pay for. So in other words, it's a paid-only app on iOS, but the advantage is it syncs directly to NextCloud and it previews beautifully the images as well, except as long as you don't use the /, then that's a problem for it. But if you use the other two that I mentioned earlier, it previews perfectly. So let's just have a quick look and I'll show you what OneWriter looks like. And what I'm going to show here now is OneWriter. The icon is at the bottom. If you click on OneWriter, how I'm connecting here is not locally to NextCloud. This is actually syncing and connecting directly via WebDAV, you'll see in the middle here, to my NextCloud server. So if I click on that, there's the folders that are in NextCloud on the server, and there is Markdown cheat sheet highlighted. So let's click on that. Just want to go back to the top, and there you'll see we are in preview mode at the moment. If you look at the top right, you'll see there's edit. That'll be the option to toggle between edit or preview. So let's look at the preview mode. What I really want to show here is you can see it is highlighting the block text quite nicely. There's your highlight text as well. And then you can also just note it's actually using the Obsidian highlight syntax to highlight, not the second one with the 2 equal signs. That's just compatibility you've got to look at between the different Markdown text apps if relevant. There's the checkboxes, for example, and you can see the checkboxes below it. You can click off rice or back on again. And here's the links. So the links are there, but what I want to show is the embedded part. So click to play. Okay, it's downloading the file, I see, because remember it's on the server. Oh, file type's not supported. Well, that's a bit of a pity. The video link is actually linking to a website. To the left to get back to the editor. Okay, I'm not sure why that's not working. You'll see it is a web address, so it's linking to a website actually. But what it is, more importantly for me, was actually more the graphics and so on. So you can see that the little Evernote graphic that is in a subfolder on my NextCloud is rendering and retrieving properly within OneWriter. So that was really more what I wanted to show. But yeah, it gives an idea of what you can do. And then also maybe just to show what edit actually looks like in... Let me just go down to the bottom here. Those were the... If I go to edit mode and I highlight, for example, a bit of text. If I go into edit mode and click inside anyway, you'll see what's opened up is this sort of menu just below it with a H for header, B for bold, I for italics. You've got ordered lists and unordered lists, links, pictures, all the various things, all the different types of markdown that you can do. So if I had to say, just highlight a word, whoops, there we go. You could now just toggle the B for bold, for example, on it. You can see there the syntax has gone in. You can toggle it off again. So, or you could make it a heading, or I don't want to completely mess up this note, but you get the idea there. It's just a sort of quick select menus that you can make use of for the editing. So OneWriter is actually quite a nice way of doing it. If you click on the top, you can rename or close the note as well. So that's really one writer. Okay, so that was one writer as well. And I've already talked about the Obsidian app, so I'm not going to demo that because it's not really working for me at all on iOS, unfortunately. So I think let's go and actually have a look at Obsidian itself now. This is actually what the slideshow looks like, by the way. It's a plain Markdown file. Basically, each slide has just got a heading. And if we go to edit mode, you'll see there it's got a heading. That indicates a heading, the hash symbol. You've got some text and you've got a line here, a horizontal line separator, and essentially that's it. It just flicks between those as it slides. So I suppose no need really to go through much more. What I just want to explain here is the layout of what the interface looks like. So obviously the first thing you're really going to notice here is in the middle is your actual note. And we can maybe just say stand here on the Markdown cheat sheet one. So by default, you'll always have this here to edit. Over here, it can toggle. You'll see at the moment, current view is editing. So I'm typing at the moment in there, but you can toggle to preview by just clicking on that. And you can see the view does change slightly, especially if I go down, say to where here's an image and a few things. If I toggle there now, you'll see it does change a bit as well. That's preview mode and that's edit mode. So let's just go back up again. That's the main pane for typing in. On the left hand side over here, you've got a pane with the navigation for notes and subfolders. So at the top, normally you'll see here are your subfolders, which you can expand like a media subfolder. And my main notes one is, here's all my notes. I've got it sorted in last modified, basically. So whatever I've not modified is going to pop up to the top over here. But you have also got, for example, a very powerful search function. So whether you're just searching for text here, you can also put things in like file name, a tag, a keyword under a particular section or a heading. You've got a history of some of your searches here, so you'll see I've searched for certain things that I was looking for. But you could have, say, click on tag and it actually pops up your various tags that you've got. So you can just choose one of your tags and it'll quickly show you everywhere where the hashtag gaming, which these are all the different notes where it actually appears. You'll see there it's highlighted inside the note. So that's the one way. The other obviously is also you can mark or star a couple as favorite notes and then you'll always find them underneath starred over there. You can change obviously context, sort order and so on. So this is generally the view that I tend to work in. Let's just go back to the cheat sheet. So on the right hand side you don't normally see this pane, but I've activated this pane. I think it might have been a plugin actually, but it's basically a note navigation pane, because you saw on QOwnNotes down on the bottom left over here, you could see all the headings which you could jump to quickly inside your note. So typically here, these are all the subheadings down inside this note. So if I clicked on comments, it would basically jump down to the comments heading over there. That is really why I like this, to be able to just jump around quickly or find where, you know, if it's a long note. For example, if I go down to my Arch Linux one, if I just look here under search, this is a very long note I've got for all of my notes that I keep around Arch Linux, how I do various things, and if I fix or work things out, I put it in there. So you'll see here, these are all the headings. There's a tremendous amount of headings actually, and the note is very long. You'll see also, by the way, he has a table of contents. So one of the community plugins you've got for Obsidian is it will generate on the fly. You just put TOC inside. I think if I look at the text, if you go to, I'm just trying to see, how do I get to, oh, okay, I can't actually see it now. It's very odd. But anyway, it just puts TOC in as a code and it will generate this on the fly as I'm adding more headings or sections further down. But just bear in mind, this particular table of contents doesn't work on NextCloud. It doesn't work on the iPhone app either. So it's really helping you only with inside Obsidian. This is the one that QOwnNotes generates. So it's also got a table of contents. And then I also used Visual Studio Code Editor, also has a Markdown editor, and it generated this one. But again, they don't work inside Obsidian. So there's a bit of a compatibility. Table of contents is not compatible. Although it works in Markdown, it's sort of specific to an application. So just by way of example there. Let's go back to cheat sheet. So that's that. The other thing I can also say is that these are draggable. So if you wanted to have this look just like QOwnNotes, you could drag this down and put it down at the bottom over here on the left and just resize it. And now you've got it actually looking just like QOwnNotes. So as I said, I like this about the interface. It's really very sort of customizable, and that drag and drop also works for like dropping a file and dropping image in, even a note you can drag and that sort of thing. So that's another thing that's quite nice. Then the other thing to note here on the far left is a couple of icons down here. So let's just have a look from the top here. The quick switcher, well, the last couple of notes that you've opened, you can just quickly click these and you can change back or forth between different notes. So that's just a quick switcher. Very nifty. The other one, a very important one, that yes, you don't have a drop down menu on the top here and so on, but what you've got is something called a command palette. So the command palette, there's two ways to activate it, either with a hotkey or by just pressing this. And essentially this is every available command. And if you've added plugins and things, they'll also appear in here. You'll see I've even pinned one or two to the top, but I'd like to use maybe fairly quickly, like a bullet list and so on. But you've got all of your commands that are in here. They're searchable, and on the right you'll see these are the ones that I've got hotkeys set for. They come either by default or you just set them. So if you wanted to find bold, you could just type bold and you'd hit enter over here, or click on it, sorry, and it would bold whatever you've highlighted. Or you'll see there Control B, as I've mentioned before. So that is the command palette. Even if you don't have a hotkey set for it, all you'd have to really do was go down somewhere, highlight some text, and you could do Control P in Obsidian's case, and it would be there, and you could type bold, or you could type bullet, whatever it is, and enter, and you can just execute it. So it really is not that difficult. I think once you get to the swing of it, you'll find the command palette is very quick and actually helps you quite a lot. This is really opening a Markdown importer. I'm not using it, but you could have imported your notes as well from other locations, and it'll do various fixing on the fly. You can open another vault. So obviously I've got all my notes in one vault called notes, but you could separate them into literally physical separate vaults and keep your work stuff separate from your home stuff maybe, or you could just have them in subfolders as well if you wanted to. There's a help as well, which will of course open up off screen, but there you can jump to visiting the help site. Very good. They've got Discord chat for assistance. It's an official forum, and there's a sandbox vault too that you can open and just play around in. And then there's settings, but I'll come to settings in a few minutes, I think. We can just have a look at context as well. If you were to right click over here, you could physically rename the file. That's where you would also rename a file with a dot text extension to a .md. You could open this in a new pane. So I could, for example, take a second one, like say this. Oh, sorry, let me just go back there. I could stand over this second one. I could right click and say open in a new pane, and you'd have them side by side there. And you could move the file. This copying the Obsidian URL is if you want to link to that note. This is where you go to get the link, and then you could paste it into another one and create a link to this note as well. You could unstar or star it there, open it in a default app, editing app on your OS. You could show in the System Explorer You could merge by highlighting 2, 3, you could merge them. That's where you'd start your presentation if it was a presentation like I did earlier. And you could copy the note or delete the note. Likewise, in the note, depending on what you've got selected, you can also have a context menu. And then there's also a drop-down context menu on the actual note itself with a whole bunch of additional options like find and replace, export to PDF, and opening a local graph. I'll show the graphs just now as to how that all works. Then the other thing you will also see is things like, say here, you can, if you right click now on this, because it was a spelling error, it'll give you a couple of spelling corrections here you can choose from, add to the dictionary, you could highlight it, and we've seen the rest already. That is pretty well much that. I just want to go down the Markdown cheat sheet. So what this is, it started out as one of these sort of examples that QOwnNotes have, and I've expanded it a bit further with some other enhanced things. So it's not just applicable to QOwnNotes, but if you open it up in QOwnNotes or other editor, it should show you pretty well much the same sort of thing. So typically, you've got different levels of heading, a main heading, then you'd have things like sub and subheadings and that sort of thing by just adding the hashtag in front of it. And if you look below it, so this is a code block which shows you the actual syntax in front of it, but you'll see if you're on the preview, and I should probably just go into preview mode here. This is the code block, and always being a code block, you could always of course press copy to copy it and paste it somewhere else, but you'll see here is #1. That's what you're going to see the size of a heading as. The subheading #2 or #2 is going to be this size, and you'll see the subheadings get smaller as you go along. And obviously the thing behind a subheading is you can expand them or collapse them as they're headings. There is an alternative as well. You'll see here above. For a main heading, you can also have a row of equals underneath, and a subheading you can have a row of dashes underneath it. That will also convert it. It's just an alternative way to do it, really. Then you've got different ways of providing emphasis, like italics, asterisks, and that's actually how you will execute them with the syntax. So in other words, that's the syntax that you'll sort of get to learn. Italics will just be a single asterisk, the word, and asterisk, and you'll see underneath here there it's showing you the italics or the underscores. Using underscores will also give you italics. Sorry, it's not an actual underscore. Then for things like strong emphasis like bold, you'll use the double asterisks or double underscore, and that's showing you how bold will appear. And you can combine them as well. And then there's two ways to do highlighting of text. The first one works very well with Obsidian, and it does also show up in certain of the other Markdown editors as well. But it essentially, look, you will only really be highlighting and right-clicking to say highlight, but it will insert this code for you. So typically it's not something you're going to be typing out, but it gives you a very nice fancy looking highlighter. Then this more standard type of highlighter is a double equals like you're seeing over here, and it's going to display this sort of thing that you're seeing as well in Obsidian or other Markdown editors. So then for lists, you've really got unordered or ordered lists. So an ordered will normally be numbers, and you just got to really type 1 period space and then the list item, hit enter, and it'll put a 2 in automatically for you, just like you normally get in a word processor. You can indent them also to create sublists. And then you've also got unordered lists, and for unordered lists you can use either a minus sign or a plus sign or a asterisk symbol, and you'll see underneath here this is sort of how you're going to see them, unordered and ordered lists. Then you've also got things like checkboxes, and a checkbox is similar to an unordered list. You'll start it with a dash or whatever you use. The important difference is you will put the square brackets in, and if they're empty, it shows here it'll be unticked. If you put an X in, it will be ticked. And you can see here I can actually tick or untick in the preview mode. Obviously in the edit mode, if I was to change here again back to edit mode, you'll see there, if you click on the actual line, you can see the code. So if I was to click, there, you'll see it's an asterisk, it's got an X in, and it's struck through. But as I said, in preview mode, you're not going to see that. It'll be nice and clean. Then links, I don't want to go through too much detail in here really. This is really standard across all the editors, but just to give you an idea, you can have an inline link like that, and you can just click on it. You can give it a title, and I've shown before, well, I've actually talked about it in the slideshow before, so I'm not going to go through those. The embedding of an audio, now inside Obsidian this works quite nicely because it is linking to the file that's in the subfolder, and you can already see if I'm in preview mode and I just hover over click the link to play, this pops up, and I'll just have to turn the volume up. If I click on it, good morning to you. That's really what it's doing. So that's click to link, and you can also click to play a video, but you'll see here what it's going to do here. It's going to open it up in the browser. So if I click this, there it's actually playing in the browser. Oops. That's really the links. So you can embed quite easily audio clips as well as video clips. Here we've actually got an image. So this is just an image. It's in the subfolder. Normally you would just optionally, like I said before, you don't have to put a heading in, but that would otherwise be the sort of the title. This is something I didn't talk about before, but I forget what the symbol is called. It's that vertical whatever. But anyway, if you put that optionally in with a 200, say, it'll just restrict this to a 200 pixels wide image. And of course, you put the address in over there. That's the best format probably to use. If I was to go back to edit mode and I click there by the image, you'll see there's the actual text. So if I was to change this, say, to 300, it should have changed the size there for you as well. As I said, that's optional. If you don't put it in, it will be the, oops, let me just go here and take it out. If I take it out, it will expand it to full the width of the note. Then you just got some inline code and blocks. So typically you'll use these for if you want to put something in that is formatted text and you don't want it to format. In other words, if I didn't put some of this text here in a code block, it would have formatted it and you wouldn't have been able to see the syntax that I'm using. So typically also if you're putting snippets of source code, programming, Python or something like that, you would always incorporate it in inline code or inside a code block. And remember, this is also applicable, I forgot to mention this, but things like Reddit, websites, Facebook chat, I think it is, and a couple of other sites, they all make use also of Markdown formatting. So it's not just for Markdown text files, but you can also use it in websites. So you can try a lot of these hints I'm talking about here to bold and paste text in and so on. So essentially, if you just use these little single angled brackets, or what are they called? Backticks, I think they're called. Then it'll be inline. So this, for example, here is showing you what inline, just the word here, it shows inline. Code has actually got the syntax around it, and that's how it'll appear in the visual or previewed text. The other way you can do it is actually with triple backticks, start and end. What that does is it'll do a whole couple of lines of code. So that's the other way to do it. Tables I haven't used very much, but essentially this is what it actually looks like. You're again using that vertical character to align some columns. Don't be put off by this. Quite a few of the Markdown text editing apps will do this automatically for you. You can sort of help define your table and it'll actually help syntax and format it for you, but this is just explaining to you how you would actually do it. Once you've got it set up like this, it's very easy just to edit your text inside the tables, and the table will look like then you've got block quotes which will show up like this down here. This is how you're going to see it in the preview view of your Markdown file. But all you're going to do is put these little marks in front of them. That's how you do them, and they will appear like this. Then a horizontal rule to draw these like lines here across the note in the preview mode. if we're really segmenting sections or something like that, you could really just use 3 or more of these dashes, or you could use hyphens, or you could use asterisks, and it will, so again, you could use either or. A line break is really just simple as hitting hard enter, really. That's all you need. Footnotes are quite sort of interesting. So they show up quite nicely in preview mode. They look a little bit crippled if you in edit mode, really. But I just want to show you here in preview mode, first of all, how they work. The syntax really is you just including the square brackets with the little, I don't know, Afrikaans, they call it a kappie. I'm trying to think what in English that is now. Gosh, no idea. Can't remember, sorry. But anyway, you get the idea. It's that over there that you're putting in with any additional text after it, and that'll create the sort of the anchor, if you want to call it that. So we've got that character with a 1 and that character with something called big note. And at the bottom of your page, or wherever you want your footnote, you want it to jump to, you're going to have your anchor, which will be the 1 or the big note that you've mentioned up here. That's where it's going to jump down to, and then you'll see whatever is next to it. That one is just a single short footnote. This one is a multiple line footnote. So what's nice about footnotes though, so let's click on this to see what happens with the footnote. This is how you're going to see it in the text, of course. If I click now on that, it jumps down right down to the bottom where the footnote is. But what's nice is that you've got this return thing. So you can just click on that and you go back to where you were inside your note. So that is actually quite a nice clean way, the footnotes actually work. Then comments, you'll see here, this is the actual text that you're putting in. But you'll see it's got a bit here, it says you can't see this text. So obviously in preview mode, you'll see here you're not seeing that bit that's missing there. Now if I toggle back to edit mode, here by comments, this is now in edit mode again, you can see that text. But if you use these percentage marks in preview mode, that comment will disappear. So if I click now again back on preview mode, you'll see that it's disappeared again. Then we've got callouts. Obsidian also supports the callout blocks. Now these callout blocks are written as a block quote like this, but they've got this sort of syntax though. Now I've got this to work. I haven't actually used it very much, so I can really more show what it does. We are in preview mode at the moment, so if you use this sort of syntax, this is what you see in the preview mode. This is actually how it appears. So obviously this exclamation info is creating this block along with these indents. That's creating this block looking this background. And this part here, it supports Markdown and you'll see and links. That's this part here, and you'll see if I hover over it, you get this pop-up that you can actually even scroll down. This is really the call out that's popping up. It is actually a separate note. If you look on the left over here, there actually is a note called Wikilinks. So what it's really doing is it's calling out that note, and without having to open it separately, it's popping it up in this sort of view, which is actually quite a nifty sort of way of doing things. In fact, on Obsidian's website, they're using a similar thing. I wouldn't say that this is going to work with all Markdown editors though, so just bear that in mind for the callouts. Then tags, I've just mentioned tags here, but you can type, and let's go to edit mode here to see how they actually work. Why tags are important is because, or I find that they're quite important, is they're a wonderful way of grouping various related notes together. So you can put a bunch of different tags in, and we'll get to the graph view probably next to have a look at it. You can not only get a nice graphical view tying everything together from a sort of a knowledge base perspective, but as part of your knowledge basing, yes, you can link to other notes as well and have what they call backlinks, to see the backlinks, to see what notes have linked to your note. That's one way. But I do find that I love using tags. Just like you hashtag, say, a tweet, you can click on the hashtag and then go and see all the other notes that have got the same hashtag. what is quite nice is there's a bit of intelligence around hashtags. So if I was to now go and add a new hashtag here, you'll see it pops up all the existing hashtags already, which you can just quickly pick from. Or if you started typing, it would show whatever you've already got existing. So it's a very nice, great way of, making sure you standardized your hashtags as well. But hashtags is really as easy as that, and we've actually seen the footnotes already. Just want to check if we've got any links. No, we don't. We don't have any links. But if there were backlinks, you'd see these at the bottom here. In other words, and again, this is that knowledge base aspect. And QOwnNotes, by the way, also has backlinks, so it's not unique to Obsidian. If there was another note that had linked to this note, you'd be able to expand this and see what else is linking to this note. So yeah, that's really the back notes. I just want to see if I might have, I think, for example, I had some gaming instructions here. If I can just find them. Game references. Well, there were some. This particular note was linking to SnowRunner, Valheim, and Hell Let Loose. And if I can just find those notes here quickly. Oh, you're saying I should do a search. Okay, let me do a search. Why did I not think of that? Oh, well, I could also just click. I've got gaming already there, I suppose, because I had it open. So if I go to Hell Let Loose, for example, at the bottom, I've got the hashtag over there. But what I wanted to show you was the backlink. So I can now, inside this note, I can see that there was another note linking to this note. And it was called Game References. There's just one, because there could be numerous, but if I click on that, it'll take me back to the parent. Call it the parent note if you want to. So that's really the backlinking as well. Other thing I want to show was another sort of the powerful other concept behind Obsidian. The two things really is this open graph display as well as its plugins. But let's just look at the open graph. So if you go here and you click on this icon on the top left, the open graph view, it shows a graphical graph, and you can drag these around, and you can, at the bottom here, the forces, you can adjust these forces. If you move these around, you can adjust repel force, center force, link distance, that sort of thing. So you can make your links a bit longer or shorter or whatever. You can also zoom in and out with the mouse, and obviously if you zoom in closer, you can see I have indicated here I want them done on tags. If I don't use tags, I think it's only showing actual links that you've got set between your, and I haven't got a lot of links really between my notes, so I'm just clicking on tags and it's showing me the tag link view. So it's also sort of heat mapped, so you can see the biggest or the most used tags that I've got probably is reference, Linux, social networks. Those are probably the most used ones. You'll see some are different colors as well. So let's just have a look here. I've got a couple of groups here, and a group is as easy as adding a new thing there and saying, what do I want to group? Do I want to group on notes that are in the same path as each other? Or am I looking for matching file names? I use tags a lot. And if I was to, or sections or whatever the case, if I was to choose tags like above, you'd say tags, and you could literally pick a tag. So it's quite a nice, easy way of doing it. And you can set colors for these various groups. So for example, I've got the Linux one, everything that's got the Linux tag, and it should show up in red. So if I hover over Linux, you'll see there, yes, they are all these red ones are the Linux based ones. And if you wanted to have a look at what it is, you could see that's the name of the note. There's the name of a note as well. And it's obviously got not only a Linux tag, but it's also linked to reference. So in this way, you can zoom in and out, drag and rearrange, and get a graphical view really of what's going on. Again, if you want to, you've got a couple of other things here, like you'll see as well, there's arrows indicating, you could turn arrows off. But you can also filter further. So instead of just having everything there and grouping them on these tags, I could also just filter, say, on the Linux ones. Oops, let me just say Linux. Now what's happening is you are just zooming in on the Linux related notes to see actually, you know, what you've got in there and what you want to do with them and that sort of thing. And you can turn the filter off again. The other one that could be of interest is the orphans, but orphans is really more for those that are not linked at all. So you're really setting hard links between your notes. As I said, I'm not really using them, so that's not really going to help me much. So this would just filter out where there's non-existent files, and obviously those that have got attachments. So that's another useful way of just seeing what it, and of course if you hover over, you can see what the attachment name is as well. But as I said, I prefer to use the tag. So yeah, you can play around with this a bit. That's the graph view, and the graph, sort of a knowledge management view really of different views of your data. And obviously from anything here, you could just click on it and it's instantly going to give you a search tag based on reference if you want to now go work with those ones. Or if you wanted to just work on a particular one, you could click on that as well. That's really how that works. Well, I think the last thing I really want to show here is possibly the settings, and where we can have a look at the plugins as well. So clicking on that icon on the bottom left, starting at the top is some of the basic editor options. So you can just say, you know, what view does your pane open up in? I open up in the editing view, but you could open up in the reading view. Obviously you can toggle at any time. You've got a live view or a source mode as well for the editing mode, and I was actually showing the live preview. So yes, that's probably why you weren't always seeing all the formatting text as well, but that's where you could set, and of course again you can toggle. You could choose if you wanted to use the legacy editor. That's for Obsidian. These are just various settings for how your editor looks, really. You can have line numbers on and off if you want, indenting, line wraps, spell check, languages, matching brackets. Obviously as you open a bracket, it'll automatically also add your closing bracket. This is an important one I mentioned earlier, the files and links. There's a couple of confirmation things here and so on. You'd set also here where your default location for new notes is, so it goes straight into the Vault folder, but you've got a couple of other options here you can. The new link format is what I mentioned earlier, so you must set it to relative path to file if you're working with your online services and you've got subfolders for your media or your attachments and so on. Obsidian has also got a thing called shortest path when possible, and it does very clever rendering and working out or resolving of paths, but as I said, I prefer to use relative path and certainly not absolute path to Vault. This is the using the wiki links and turning it off. I've disabled it, and it, in other words, generates Markdown links instead, sort of compatible Markdown links. Otherwise it does a couple of other things, and I'm not really working exclusively inside Obsidian. Detect all file extensions. Yeah, we've got that. We've got the default location for new attachments, and I've said they're in a subfolder under the current folder, but you've got a couple of options, and I've specified which subfolder it must be. It must be in the media subfolder. You can obviously exclude a few files as well. Appearances, you've got a couple of options here, dark and light. You've got theming. Just bear in mind the theming. There are some themes, and I do like the fact they've got everything integrated. I think in most cases everything works, but I know that certain of the custom themes for like translucence and that sort of thing, I don't know that they are necessarily working on Linux or all flavors of Linux, so just bear that in mind. But you've got a couple of very nice themes that you can make use of there. There's the translucent window. You see, best used with dark mode, not supported on Linux. Well, we can try it. Yes, I don't see anything really happening there. Then you've got your basic font settings and so on as well, and snippets. Hotkeys, this is where you will set your hotkeys. And if you want, so you'll see these are basically all your commands, what you saw on command palette already. If, for example, you wanted create a new board, for example, it doesn't have a highlight, you could just click over there and say Control G or Control L, say, and it's set. It's as easy as that. Or you can just restore it. So that is where you'd set your hotkeys. And this is important, especially if you add new plugins. You can come here then and set up hotkeys for them. Okay, you've got some about here, like the version. You can check for updates. I've got automatic updates on. You can set your language for Obsidian itself. So you have got a good many choices of language as well. There's the commercial license if you wanted to use it for commercial purposes. So yes, it's free for personal use. Hardware acceleration. You could override the config folder, not really necessary. Account, obviously, if you had an account. I don't have an account. These are your core plugins that you essentially get with Obsidian. So File Explorer. The reason why is because some of these aren't enabled by default, and you can also disable if you want a simpler, cleaner view, like you don't want to see the graph view, you don't want backlinks, that sort of thing. Tag pane, page preview, daily notes. I don't make use of. A lot of Markdown editors do have them. Templates, Note Composer, editor status, the outliner, word count, slides. So slides was off by default. Oh, I didn't put the audio recorder on, but it'll save it as an attachment then for you. Workspaces, file recovery. These two will work with Obsidian Sync and Publish, I think, if you've got the Obsidian account. So that's why they're unique. Okay, let's go and hit the powerhouse, I suppose. Let's look at community plugins. If you don't want to go through community plugins, you can just skip to the next part in my video. But these, essentially, safe mode will normally be on, so you won't see community plugins. So you will turn that off, and then all these options are going to appear for you. You can check for updates for them. You can activate debug, and you can see these are the ones that I've already installed at the moment, like the table of contents, code block from selection, Kanban. I didn't show, but it's got a nice Kanban type note where you can have, those swim lanes for planned, currently busy with, done, that type of thing. Local images, I'll scroll through them just now, but you can deactivate them, delete them, and jump to their own options and settings from here. But this is where you'd click to go and browse through the 597. I can show, like I said, a couple. It's sorting at the moment. Oh, I see there's already another 5 or 6 since yesterday that have joined. So you can obviously set over here and filter for just say outline, and then see these are the sort of the outline related plugins. Or Kanban. There's a couple of Kanban based ones. What's the other type of thing? Yes, I suppose calendar based type. There's a couple of calendar based type plugins. You could look at RSS if you wanted to. There's 2 RSS type things. What's interesting to me, and this is now where it sets itself apart from things like QOwnNotes, is like Kindle. There's 2 Kindle related type plugins. So this one, Kindle Highlights, is going to import your highlights from books that you've been reading. Now this is quite powerful, and now you can go use and edit and play around with those in an editable note. This is, by the way, what a table will look like if it's properly previewed. That's the one, and you've also got Kindle Export. It's Obsidian. It sends your notes to your Kindle as a Mobi file. So there you go. You can export to your Kindle as well. Excel to, you can import from Excel to a Markdown table and into a Markdown table editor. So if you've created something in Excel, I think it'll import it into a note so that you will have, 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 let me just see here, Obsidian plugin to paste data from an Excel, a Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, Apple Numbers, LibreOffice Calc as a Markdown table. So you can copy it from a spreadsheet and paste it into your Markdown editor. We can scroll down a couple of these here and just have a look, but there's an incredible, I mean, I don't want to go through the whole lot because we're going to really going to be here till tomorrow. But there's mind maps, day planners, style settings, paste URL, emojis, task manager as well. There's citations for notes, which is quite useful for, you know, academic type use. Dictionaries, Markdown Prettyfire as well. And I must say the help here for the plugins is actually very, very good as well. There's charts, annotator, stand on that too long. PDF highlighter, so it'll also open PDFs. It doesn't just do Markdown text. Like I said, it also does text documents. It does do PDFs, and I think possibly something else as well. I've got buttons. Now I'm actually wondering, I didn't see this. I'm trying to think whether this actually adds buttons like you saw on QOwnNotes, you know, a proper button bar. You create buttons and I think it runs scripts, if I've got that right. Oh, there's some YouTube videos. I don't want to go through that now. Buttons, use a button maker. Yes, you create, I think, custom buttons to do things. So I suppose you could make a bold button and an italics button yourself actually anyway using this. So there's another way of doing it. Folder notes. There's more to-dos there. Oh, banners. It creates a banner for the top of your note, a little bit like you see YouTube banners and things like that as well, actually. If I remember correctly, yes, there we go. So you can create nice banners at the top of your notes. There was the dynamic table of contents. Mine are just using this bit of code at the moment, but you've got obviously a couple of other settings and it'll dynamically then generate that table of contents. I think reading time, I didn't have it in, but reading time, reminders, typewriter scroll just moves the text as you're typing, almost like a typewriter. There's different table of contents here. Markdown formatting assistant. Oh, so here's a side panel. Maybe this is the one that creates some form of a helper. Timelines. Oh, so these timeline view or like for change logs, I suppose, that sort of thing. Homepage, graph analysis. Set of algorithms that computes useful relations between the notes in your vault. So this is a bit of a knowledge-based type functionality as well. Fantasy calendar. I think you'll agree though, as I'm going through some of this, I mean, this is stuff you just haven't really seen in most other Markdown editors, to be honest. A dice roller, autocomplete to enhance typing speed, I suppose. I'm going to sort of go down here because honestly most people, you can actually jump ahead in the video if you don't want to see some of this. A map of the content. It's just that this is one of the sort of the most powerful features as well on Obsidian, this rich amount of additional and pretty good quality plugins as well. So for me, it is probably worth just going through a little bit for those that are interested. Oh, here's more advanced slides. Oh dear, pity I didn't see this. Sorry about that, and I would have maybe given you something a little bit more interesting. Yes, you see, I couldn't preview while I was editing the slides. I had to keep running it all the time to see what it looked like. So there's obviously a bit of additional assistance there. Promoted timer. Gallery for this images. Oh, that's quite handy as well. Yeah, I can see I'll probably be loading mine with more plugins. I suppose that's not generally the actual idea. You probably don't want to. Oh, that's very nice. Of course I want to be using this. I love tag cloud counts. Oh, it's a word count, sorry, not tag cloud. Or can you maybe set it also for tags? I don't know, but I suppose they will show up in here anyway. Okay, that's very nice. So if you want to install something like that, then basically you just go up there and you say install. You'll see there it says it's installing it, and then you must just activate it as well, enable it, sorry. There we go. And there's options that you can set. So that shows you how you install it, I suppose, as well. Then let's have a look. Oh, show white space, if you've got editing issues. I remember that before we had Microsoft Office, Samna word processor and was it Lotus Notes and one or two of the others, they used to be able to show you your white spaces, and especially important if you've got some coding issues or problems, then this helps, see where you've got incorrect spacing or other problems there. There's the RSS reader. You can incorporate RSS to pull it into your notes. So that probably dynamically updates. Page header bars. Oh, Imgur. Okay, so it'll import images, I would imagine. Oh, it uploads images instead of storing them locally. So yes, normally you will save your image in a subfolder. Now that means it's got to be synced across obviously your devices, or whether through Google Drive or NextCloud, but this would be a different option here. So you could add an image, and using this plugin, it's going to basically upload it to Imgur and put in the link. Then it means whenever you open your note, or if you distribute your note online or to third parties or to other people, and they open it with any editor, it's going to automatically preview the notes straight from the online source. So that's quite nice, and they don't have to be synced offline, that is, Text snippets, better footnotes, map views, jump to link, block reference, CSV editor. Okay, I think viewing and editing CSV files. Okay. Dangling links panel. Okay. We're nearly halfway through. It's another CSV table. We've got comments as well. Okay, this is sort of floating comment boxes. That's quite nice as well. Again, of these are often, many of these are going to be specific to Obsidian. But remember, Obsidian, like I said, I think it'll probably work better on Android than on iOS. Obviously, if you're using Obsidian in the iOS ecosystem, then I should have said, it'll probably work perfectly well through iCloud sync between your iPhone, your MacBook, I suppose, and your iPad. But I don't have an Apple exclusive ecosystem, so for me that just wasn't an option, and I didn't really even explore using it. Oh, okay, it also syncs with Pocket. read it later, type synchronization. Daily activity. Oh, they've got some examples there. A budget WYSIWYG. Isn't there a view? Oh, how can you do a WYSIWYG plugin and you don't have a preview? Indentation lines. There's a text expander. Another timeline. Oh, Discord as well, I see. Oh, I have got this installed, this text as MB. The reason why is by default it only showed or saw or explored the .md extension files, the Markdown extension files, and I had a couple of notes that were saved as text files. So by putting this in, I could see them and they just got a little tag on saying they're a text file. So I renamed a whole bunch of them actually as well, but I just installed that for that reason really. Underline, I think, was to create underline. So underline by default also you don't see in Markdown text, if I remember correctly. I know HTML has got it. So if I pressed Control U on mine, it would also do and show underlines on, definitely in Obsidian. Again, I'm not sure about other Markdown editors. It depends on whether they've got that support or not. I don't know that it was a default. Oh, you could open your Vault in VS Code. Okay, that's quite nice. There's the theme picker. That's probably a better, I suppose, a different... Oh, it's got a preview of the themes before you pick or apply them, I suppose. Prettier formats. Privacy glasses. Oh, I think it's again hiding... Oh, that's nice. They give you a warning it's not being supported. That's quite convenient. Change logs. Remember, GitHub is also one of those sites that all the text files in GitHub are Markdown files. So if you really want to go to town and make your GitHub README file really shine, you could create your README file using Obsidian, because again, a proper dedicated Markdown text editor is going to give you all the stuff that you need. Things like Visual Studio and some of the others, the problem is that they don't have all the Markdown text functionality really, and these additional plugins and so on. So, there's a good reason why you sometimes want to use a proper Markdown text editor. That's for the Obsidian Syncer, obviously. Link editor, habit tracker. Sorry, I need to speed up a little bit, I suppose, eh? Music sheet code blocks. I just want to see if they show you. No, they don't show you a preview of anything. React, pluck. Text accounting. Mac OS keyboard navigation. Completed tasks display. Various hotkeys, things you can do as well. Completed area, okay. Org mode. Sidebar expand on hover. That's quite nice as well. Additional search. Dynamic highlights. Oh, I've got this, by the way, and I didn't actually show it, but it's a related notes finder. The basic command is show possible links, and essentially it's going to show up potentially linked notes. So it's also another way of expanding your knowledge base and exploring your knowledge base, should I say. That's actually quite a nice feature, so that's why I've also put that in. Chess. Really? Can't be. Chess game. Oh, okay. All right. Snippets. It's just to show the date and time. QR generator plugin. You can also bring Apple reminders in. So if you're resizing, so there's quite a lot that you can change the user interface with as well in the plugins, and that's actually very interesting. Seeing this is proprietary, it's got a lot more of that versus than QOwnNotes has actually got. Tweets. There's also, I'm probably going to get to it still, but there is something also that will allow you not only to do tweets, but to do WordPress posts from Obsidian itself. Python Lab plugin, macros, code copy, temple, stopwatches, how long you've been staring at your vault, garbling text, okay. Tomorrow's daily note, native scroll bars, Obsidian tweaks I didn't see yet. So there's a couple of other tweaks as well. Spotlight, weather fetcher. I think what's that? JSON, is that an importer or editor? Open cards. There's an image uploader as well. We had a chessboard editor just now. Julian dates, paper cut. That's probably emoticons, I think, to insert. Change log, activity logger. Oh, there's also again MDX files. Go to line number. Oh, Vim. A metronome. Binary file manager or KO reader. There's also for Kobo as well. I saw a Kobo plugin as well I forgot about. I didn't show yet. Oh, Wordle, of course. So that must be a fairly new one, I suppose. You can play Wordle directly in the editor. Pinboard sync. Excel we've seen already. We saw calendars already. There's also a Zotero desktop connector. Local images I've got. Markdown tasks on a Kanboard style note. Don't know if there's a... No, I don't seem to have a preview. Customizable menu. There's a tag page. That might be quite nice. I like tag clouds and stuff. Image captions, Obsidian rich links, Markdown table editor. Custom frames. There's tweet to a Markdown. Wikipedia. Get the first section of a Wikipedia for a note title or search item. Okay, it's quite nice. Multi-column podcast note. File cleaner. Oh, Trello. Okay, that's a Kanboard type application. A heat map calendar. Okay, nice. Bible references. Split dialogue, text to speech. Okay. Itinerary. There's tag and word and link clouds. Yes, I want that. I haven't even looked how it works yet. Diagrams, Lungerjack. Get info, Cookling, word sprint. We are nearly nearing the bottom. As I said, please jump ahead if you don't want to see all of this. I just think that this is quite interesting, and this is what sold me on Obsidian, to be honest. There's the published to WordPress. Scales and chords. Quote of the day. Obsidian Social. Oh. Daily Notes Viewer. Power Search. Vocabulary. Oh, Hacker News. Nice. There's Vim input method switch as well. Oops. Snippet commands. Don't know if it sounded interesting, but anyway. Text generator. Footnote, relative find, card view switcher. Improve Vim cursor, Bible linker. Audio speed. Oh, okay, you can adjust the audio speed. Chat view. Simple note quiz. Overdue. Novel word count. Pipe tricks. There's the, oh, we've done the Kindle already. Book search. Stenograph. Oh, stenography. Okay. Fleeting notes. List modified. Crypto lookup. Well, there you go. Crypto's made it into here as well. Obsidian chess itself. There's a preview. Typing speed. Wow, shows your current typing speed. That could be quite interesting. I wonder if there's a limit to how many. I don't know. Now there again, now here's another unique thing. I mean, really, an Aura plugin. So I've actually got an Aura ring. I mean, I could try this, I suppose, but wow, look at that. That's an interesting plugin. Now you just don't find that really on other Markdown editors, or anyway, where do you find Aura plugins? So, well, that's quite interesting. There's the Kobo highlights importer. So like you had Kindle Notes, highlights and notes, you can also do it for Kobo. Again, there's not always such a lot of support for Kobo, so you know, good for whoever developed that. That's very nice. Google Tasks. Etherpad Lite. So Etherpad's also on. I've done a review on this on a previous video actually about Etherpad. That's very nice. And that's the lot. So a couple of these were obviously new, but that's the plugins. So let's just move on then. This is really actually just the options. So that was really the end of options. These are just the various options of the plugins themselves that have been activated. So often there are some changes, and for example, there's Kanban. I didn't actually do Kanban yet. I haven't actually tried Kanban, to be honest. Additional stop words, recalculate word distribution. Okay, well, I haven't done that yet. And there's the related notes finder. You can set how long the words or how short the words are, and you can exclude certain words that are not relevant really to linking. So there is that. I hope the video has then given some idea of the absolute rich and diverse functionality that Obsidian has got, and really that was what blew me away. I think I was quite happy with my QOwnNotes. I've been using it for a good many years actually, but wow, when I saw the number of plugins on this thing, the community plugins, it absolutely blew me away. So it was mainly that, the user interface, just to me a little bit more user friendly and nicer than QOwnNotes. And then, as I said, the other thing was really that knowledge graph view that you've got as well. And you know the way, and you just saw the 1 or 2 plugins that actually do additional information on this as well. So you know those are the sort of the few key things that do set it aside, I think. And yes, I know, as I said, I know it's not an open source product per se. It is using an open standard, which is vitally important. So it means also, again, like I said, no locking. You know, even though you've created and done a whole lot of stuff inside using Obsidian, it's not locking you in. You could use OneWriter, you could use various of the other Markdown editors to carry on working. You know, so no matter whether Obsidian disappears or suddenly decides to charge and no longer have a free product, I think it is a very nice product. So I know I don't usually cover sort of non-open source stuff, but I just thought this is very interesting, and it is working on an open standard. So it's not a Microsoft Office or anything like that. It's, like I said, still offering the essentials of an open standards product and promoting the Markdown text. So hopefully that was of interest to many of you. I'm sure that many people do need to use note editors, and I still, for example, myself have hundreds of notes over here that I just build out all my knowledge as I'm working and I'm discovering and fixing, whether I'm doing videos like this one or whether I'm fixing some problems on my VPS server or on my Linux desktop or on my iPhone. I've got a massive notes around, just say, for example, the iPhone shortcuts and things that I've learned. I put those into notes. That is where my stuff goes. It goes into notes. So I use, whether it was QOwnNotes or I now use Obsidian, I'll do a search and I can basically find all the stuff that I've learned over the years. In fact, every single work meeting I've attended must be a good 800 or 900 meetings. Those are all inside notes. They're in Markdown text notes, every single meeting. So if somebody says to me, you met so-and-so, or that month you attended a meeting relating to security, or whatever the case was, go back to my notes, I do a search, and I can instantly bring a note back from 2009 and say, yes, it was these 3 people I met with, it was this and this we decided in the meeting, we discussed that, because as I was sitting in a meeting, I was sitting on my laptop, or later my tablet, or my whatever the case was. I just brought all my notes across with me to whatever platform I was working on. And that is why I have got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of notes. And receipts, I mean, some of these you'll see were also receipts. I took photos of all my things that I bought, and then I would save the receipt, for example, for it as well. So yeah, you know, some people might use Google Keep. I used to use Google Keep a bit as well, but for the raw volume of notes that I use on a daily basis for whatever, and I'm building up on, I'm using these type of Markdown editor notes. That's what I'm actually using. So maybe not for everybody, but if you are the type of note orientated person, you like building your knowledge base, you want to keep track of everything you've learned over a couple of years, try Markdown note editors. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You're not always going to have a Microsoft Word across every single device you're working on, but I can guarantee you, whatever device you're working on, there will be a Markdown text editor available for it. Whether you created that note on a MacBook, or you created it on an Android phone, or you created it on a Linux desktop, or tomorrow you're using a Piggly-Poo OS, there's going to be a Markdown text editor for it. So you'll be able to carry your notes with you and carry on working. And that to me is the beauty and the power, I think, of using Markdown notes. So yeah, that's it really. Keep safe, and I will see you in my next video.